So hello there, welcome to Damien's Trains and Travels and welcome to the review. And this is a review on Beau in the Bachmann HO scale Thomas the Tank Engine range. And I got this Christmas, and if you watch my video that I made a couple of months ago showing the new Wallace & Gromit Corgi train chase set, you'd probably have seen that I mentioned Beau in that video with some other Christmas presents that I got. And I actually got this, given this to me as a present by a close friend of mine called Charlie Smith. And he was actually by my side when I edited the video about Richard Sherman, David Dickinson, as you can see on my channel here. I recommend you watch that one. And also, something that's quite funny in that Wallace & Gromit one that I did. I showed the British Heart Foundation charity shop in Wellingborough, and I made a reference to a penguin outside, saying the good thing it wasn't Feathers McRaw, who was the penguin in Wallace & Gromit. And that shop's actually now closed down, less than a month after I made that video. And also, it's like in another video of mine, I mentioned Wilco in town, and now that's closed down as well. So I wouldn't say I was a superstitious man, but a few things that I've shown on my channel shop-wise have closed down and things have changed over the years. I guess don't know what's around the corner really, particularly in retail the way it is at the minute. So anyway, I got this model for Christmas, and as you can see, this model of Beau, he's got a moustache, and he sort of reminds me of Iron Duke and Station Officer Steele and Fireman Sam, who both had moustaches. And I don't think there was many other engines that had facial hair. The only, obviously a lot apart from eyebrows, but the only other one that did was Mighty from Mighty Mac. He had like a quiff of hair on his face. But yeah, so on this model, I think it's a great detail all the way around. The front part of the model, because this is obviously a tender locomotive, I think like the front part, it looks absolutely superb. There are some very delicate parts, and on the front of the box it says age is 8+, and particularly when I was 8 years old, don't know if I could have been trusted to have looked after this model very well. Like there is many fragile parts, but it's like as well I collect the 009 ones that they do in Bachmann as well with the narrow gauge engines, and they say age is 14+, and at 14 I'd probably be a bit more careful. So I think this one, considering how delicate it is, that should be the same as well. When I do a lot of my reviews, I often get people ask me, you know, do I prefer the Hornby Thomas range or the Bachmann one? And the answer for me is, obviously it depends on the model, and also it depends because obviously Hornby's made some models that Bachmann haven't, and then Bachmann have made models that Hornby haven't. And like I said, it just depends at the end of the day. So, you know, obviously it depends on the model, but in all my reviews, obviously I do normally tend to say if obviously is the equivalent what I prefer. Beau wasn't made in the Hornby range, he was only made in Bachmann, so obviously for Bachmann I think this is good. Something else as well that I noticed is in the TV series, Beau had buffers on his front and on his back, and this model doesn't have any buffers, but that's probably realistic to real life. So to be honest with you, for me, that's not a bad thing. I mean, sometimes there's models I look at and they get like the colours of things wrong and things look wrong, and you know, for me that sort of changes my thoughts on the model. But for this one, I think it's really good. And it's like, for example, again, Mighty Mac, they had buffers, and so did Fearless Freddy, and I've actually seen a lot of, as you know, narrow gauge engines in real life, and they don't actually have buffers in real life. And again, all the Thomas engines are based upon real locomotives, and as you know, I go to a lot of reserve railways. And then moving on to the tender, and I do think on the whole the tender's nice, but for me the logs on the top, because he's obviously a wood burner, I don't think the logs look that realistic. I mean, obviously you know it's a model, so they're not going to be real anyway, but for me the logs just don't look quite right on the tender, so I think that's a little bit of a letdown. And this is quite expensive, and you probably noticed, and I've had people put in the comment sections asking me when there's going to be more reviews and that sort of thing. And another model I would like to get in the future is Rebecca, that come out. She's based on the Squadron that used to be at Nen Valley Railway, which has now moved to the East Lancashire Railway. So she's a model I'd like to get. And also Sir Handel when he comes out, who's 009. And I do have a 009 layout still, but I don't have a 001. And I ended up moving house, and eventually I'm going to set up my own layout at home. But at the minute I don't have a layout of my own at home, which is why I'm not really buying much at the minute. Obviously when I do, I'll, you know, I have obviously got bills and that to pay in my own house and stuff like that, and other priorities now. I will be buying stuff from time to time. And I mean, when I did a lot of my reviews in the past, a lot of the stuff I already had, and when I was younger it was a lot cheaper. And it's like, as well, as you know, as I've been doing reviews now for the past, this year, 11 years, and also the ones on my actual die-cast ones, and as I've shown in the magazines, years ago the prices were so much cheaper than what they are now. Even with Bachmann, the prices have gone up so much over the years. You know, it's not a cheap hobby, but you know, it's one that I still enjoy and get joy out of. So I will be buying stuff from time to time when I can afford it. But I went down to one of the museums, as you saw in my previous video, and so when I was there, I took Beau with me. And I've always been told, advice that I've been given is when you get a brand new loco, you're supposed to run it for like nearly an hour one way and then the other direction as well. I just ran him straight out of the box, coupled up with some trucks, and I have to admit, because of his size and that, I was actually not sure how much he was going to be able to manage, but he was actually a lot more powerful than I thought, and he managed this train quite well. He did better than Oliver. As you can see, I've got this clip here of Oliver, and I thought Oliver might be able to manage this, but he struggled. But Beau performed absolutely really well all day, and as you can see on the top, he's got the headlights. Most of the Bachmann ones they do, the Thomas ones and the Underground Ernie ones, the eyes move from side to side. The only other ones that they do that have the headlamp light up are the Chugington ones, and they've been discontinued, so is the Underground Ernie ones. And in my opinion, I preferred Underground Ernie to Chugington in some ways, really. I was about 13 when that show came out, I think. But anyway, yeah, so on this one, the headlight shines as he goes round, and he does run really well, as you can see here. and Beau was introduced in Big Worlds, Big Adventures, the film. And to be honest with you, by this point, I'd actually more or less stopped watching Thomas, really. I hadn't really watched it for years. But then there was a couple of episodes I'd watched in recent years, like when characters like Daisy and Don Douglas and that come back. I did watch bits of that, really, because they were like my favourite sort of characters, really. And I think that was one thing that I found with Thomas over the years. I mean, when I was younger, I watched like Series 1 to Series 7, and when I was sort of like around the time when I was first born, Series 4 come out not long after I was born, and I remember watching Series 4 when it was new, more or less, and on VHS tapes and that back then. And that was my sort of era of Thomas, really. I think, in particular, Series 1 to 4 were the best for me, really. And I liked a lot of the characters that were introduced, and I just found particularly, there were so many characters that got introduced that there were a lot of the ones that I did like that were being left out. There's problem, I suppose, when you've got so many characters being introduced all the time. And Beau, from what I've seen on the wiki page, only appeared in Big World, Big Adventures. And as you can see, he is quite small compared to the other engines. But again, when you see him next to Thomas in that, he's a bit smaller. And also, as well, quite a few years back, I went to Port Aventura, which is a theme park in Spain. That video's on my channel. And I actually rode on an engine called Jupiter, which looked exactly the same as Beau as well. And on the whole, I don't really like American engines. I prefer like British sort of steam engines, although I have filmed locomotives from other countries, and I mean some of them were even built in the UK anyway when we have more of an industry. So I have filmed ones from other countries as well. But Beau, I did actually really enjoy watching running, and like I said, he ran really well, so yeah, I do actually really, really like this model of Beau. Like I said, I do think there's some detail on the tender that's a bit of a letdown, but then there's all the other details on the cab and all the other bits and pieces that are really nice as well. And he works at the Grand Canyon for a mining company. And like I said, he was only seen that once in Big World, Big Adventures, so I'm sort of surprised that Bachmann made him, really, because I always tended to find with Bachmann they were sort of only really creating the sort of current characters that were appearing, quite a fair amount of times, really, whereas Beau, in my opinion, was a little bit of a one-off, so I'm surprised they actually made him. And then, like I said, Hornby and the Ertl range that I used to buy, they were always producing characters, whether they only appeared in the Railway series or whether they only appeared like once or twice, And again, I used to buy the magazines, and some characters, only appeared a few times in the TV series, used to appear a lot in the magazines as well. So, like I said, I am surprised that they made Beau, but like I said, I think he's a great model nevertheless. And I'd give him an 8.5 out of 10, because I don't think he's quite there for me to give a 10 out of 10, because I think, like, particularly the tender is a bit of a letdown. But on the whole, I do think there's some great details. I mean, he's a very nice looking model, and I think they've captured his face very well. And like I said, he is a good runner, and when I saw him running, I did really like him. Again, if you look on the box, it says on the front, obviously, with all the HO scale ones, the eyes move from side to side. Obviously, Beau doesn't. I'm assuming it's because his boiler's a lot smaller, and obviously he's got the headlight that works anyway, so that sort of accommodates it, really. Otherwise, if they'd have obviously put all the mechanisms in for his eyes, I dare say he probably wouldn't have been the right sort of shape. So he's the only HO one that I know that doesn't actually have moving eyes, and it just does say that on the front, and then on the back, normally it shows a photo of the engine and says with moving eyes, and it does say with moving eyes, but it doesn't show Beau, it actually shows Thomas. But then again, it does actually mention on the fact that Beau doesn't have moving eyes, but he does have the headlight light that works on the front. And then obviously you've got the list of all the other characters as well, and Beau's not even mentioned on the list or in any of the pictures on the back. Obviously we can tell from the front that it's him anyway. And as I said before, I'm not as keen on the packaging on the Bachmann HO ones as I am like the Hornby ones, because they've got the Hornby ones, they come in like a cardboard box, and again, so do the 009 ones. They come in a box, and I just think that having that like proper cardboard box around it just protects the model a bit more, rather than just being like this plastic sort of shell where it could, obviously it depends how you store them, I guess, really. But I keep them all sort of stored together in a box and that, so I'd worry about it. I mean, I do obviously stack them carefully, but I just feel that if they're in a box, like I say, like the Hornby range, they're just that bit more protected, really. That's my personal opinion. I know that other channels like Sam Trains have had their items damaged as well in this sort of packaging as well. But again, if people don't actually complain to Bachmann, it's probably never going to change. But like I said, they do it for other models as well. So I'm surprised, like they say, the 009 ones, I'm surprised that they don't for this one, really. like I said, I do think Beau's a fantastic model. I recommend you get him. Until next time, TTFN, ta-ta for now, and thanks for watching.